The signal came from deep space on a Tuesday morning. Lieutenant Commander Jake Martinez was drinking his third cup of coffee when the computers at the Deep Space Communications Array started screaming alerts. The screens lit up with data streams he had never seen before. "What the hell is this?" Jake muttered as he set down his mug. He had been working at the Colorado facility for 8 years. He knew every type of signal that came through their systems. This was something completely new. The transmission was strong. Too strong to be natural. Someone or something was broadcasting with enough power to reach across multiple star systems. Jake's hands moved quickly over his keyboard as he started recording everything. "Computer, begin translation protocol," he said to the AI system. "Translation not possible. Unknown language patterns detected," the computer replied in its calm voice. Jake frowned. The facility's translation software could handle over 3,000 Earth languages and had been programmed to recognize basic mathematical and scientific concepts that any intelligent species might use. If it could not translate this signal, then whoever sent it was truly alien. He picked up his secure phone and dialed Admiral Lisa Washington at Space Command Headquarters. She answered on the second ring. "Admiral, we have something big here," Jake said. "I'm getting a transmission from outside our solar system. It's definitely artificial and definitely not human." There was silence on the other end for a moment. "Are you certain?" "Yes, ma'am." The signal strength alone proves it came from an advanced civilization. "I'm sending you the data now. I'll be there in 2 hours," Admiral Washington said. "Don't let anyone else know about this yet." Jake spent the next hour running every test he could think of. The signal was consistent and repeating. Whatever message it contained was being broadcast over and over again, as if the sender desperately wanted someone to hear it. Dr. Ryan Clark arrived before the Admiral. The tall, thin scientist had worked with alien communication theories for most of his career, even though no one had ever found proof that aliens existed. Until now. "Show me everything," Dr. Clark said as he walked into the control room. Jake played the signal. It sounded like music mixed with static, with patterns that almost made sense, but not quite. Dr. Clark listened carefully, his eyes closed in concentration. "There's mathematics in this," he said after several minutes. "Basic physics equations. They're trying to establish that they understand science. It's what we would do if we were trying to talk to an unknown species. Can you translate it? Give me time. If they're using universal constants like the speed of light and basic atomic structures, I should be able to build a translation matrix." Admiral Washington arrived with a small team of experts. She was a short woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded the Earth Defense Fleet for 12 years and had always wondered if they would ever need to defend against something from outside the solar system. "What do we know?" she asked. Jake gave her a full briefing. The signal was coming from a star system about 40 light years away. It had been broadcasting for at least 6 hours before they detected it. The power requirements to send such a strong signal across that distance were enormous. "Dr. Clark, how long until you have a translation?" "I'm making progress. The mathematical portions are becoming clear. They're definitely trying to communicate with someone who might not understand their language." 2 hours later, Dr. Clark had the first partial translation. What they learned changed everything. "It's a distress call," he announced to the room. "They're asking for help." The message was simple once decoded. An alien civilization called the Zephyrian Coalition was under attack by something called the Kythera Empire. Their worlds were being destroyed. Their people were being killed. They were broadcasting to anyone who might be listening, begging for assistance. "How do we know this is real?" asked Colonel Nancy Price, the military intelligence officer who had arrived with Admiral Washington. "The signal contains detailed star charts and astronomical data," Dr. Clark replied. They're telling us exactly where they are and where the threat is coming from. This level of detail would be almost impossible to fake. Admiral Washington studied the translated message on her tablet. The aliens described their attackers as ruthless conquerors who showed no mercy. Entire planets had gone silent. Billions of beings were dead or dying. There's something else, Dr. Clark said quietly. I found references to other species in their database, including us. What do you mean? They know about Earth. They know about humans. And Admiral, they're afraid of us. The room went silent. Dr. Clark brought up a section of the message that had taken him hours to decode. It contained what appeared to be a galactic database entry about Earth and its inhabitants. They classify our world as a Class 12 death world, he explained. According to their information, that means a planet so dangerous that most galactic species would die within hours of exposure. They describe humans as apex predator sapiens. What does that mean? Admiral Washington asked. It means they think we're the most dangerous intelligent species in the galaxy. Jake looked around the room. So they're calling for help, but they're afraid of us? It appears so. Their database contains warnings about human psychology, our capacity for violence, and our military capabilities. It seems the galactic community has been deliberately avoiding contact with us. Admiral Washington stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see the Colorado mountains stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there among the stars, an entire civilization was dying while calling for help. Dr. Clark, can we send a reply? Yes, but it would take 40 years to reach them at light speed. What about our experimental faster-than-light communication system? Dr. Clark's eyes widened. That's still theoretical. We've never tested it beyond our solar system. Today seems like a good day to find out if it works, Admiral Washington said. She turned back to the group. I want a response prepared immediately. Tell them help is coming. Admiral, Colonel Price interrupted, we don't have the capability to mount an interstellar military operation. Our fastest ships would take decades to reach them. Admiral Washington smiled grimly. Colonel, you're forgetting about Project Deep Strike. The room went quiet again. Project Deep Strike was humanity's most classified military program. For the past 15 years, Earth's best scientists and engineers had been working on technologies that most people believed were impossible. Faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, ships designed to fight in the emptiness between stars. The fleet is operational? Dr. Clark asked. 12 ships. Not much by science fiction standards, but they're the most advanced vessels ever built by human hands. Each one carries enough firepower to level a continent. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are we really going to war with aliens? We're going to help people who asked for our help, Admiral Washington replied. The fact that everyone else in the galaxy is apparently afraid of us just means we should be very careful about how we do it. She picked up her secure phone and dialed a number that connected her directly to the President of Earth's United Government. Mr. President, this is Admiral Washington. We have a situation that requires immediate authorization for Operation Deep Strike. As she spoke, Jake looked at the continuing alien distress signal on his screen. Somewhere among the stars, people were dying while asking for help. And humanity, the species everyone feared, was about to answer that call. The age of human isolation was about to end. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Zephyrian space 3 weeks later. Captain Ben Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Unzi Defiance, watching the alien star system appear on the main screen. 12 human warships hung in the darkness, their black holes bristling with weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Contact the Coalition fleet, Rodriguez ordered. Let them know we're here to help. Commander Amy Foster worked at the communications station. trying to establish contact with the aliens who had sent the distress call. The Zephyrians had been expecting help, but not from humans. Their response came quickly, and it was not what the human fleet had hoped for. "Captain, I'm getting multiple transmissions from the Coalition ships," Foster reported. They're asking us to leave." "What?" "The lead ship is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're saying our presence here violates galactic law, and that we should return to our home system immediately." Rodriguez felt his jaw tighten. They had traveled 40 light years to help these people, and now they were being told to go home. "Put me through to their command ship." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien vessel. The differences were immediately obvious. Where human ships were built for function and durability, the Zephyrian ship looked like it was made from crystal and light. Everything was smooth and curved, with soft blue illumination that seemed to glow from within the walls themselves. Standing in the center of the alien bridge was Admiral Thekanos of the Coalition Defense Force. He was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. His movements were graceful and precise, like a dancer or an artist. When he saw Captain Rodriguez on his screen, he actually stepped backward. "Human Commander," Thekanos said in accented but clear English, "I must ask you to withdraw your fleet immediately. Your presence here creates a dangerous situation." Rodriguez studied the alien's face. Fear. That was what he saw in those large dark eyes. Pure fear. "Admiral, we received your distress call. We're here to help you fight the Kythera Empire." "We did not call for your specific assistance," Thekanos replied quickly. "Our message was intended for peaceful species only. Humans are classified as a Class 12 combat species. Your involvement could escalate this conflict beyond acceptable parameters." "Acceptable parameters?" Rodriguez felt his temper rising. "Your people are being slaughtered, and you're worried about acceptable parameters." Dr. Sandra Kim, the fleet's cultural liaison, moved to stand beside the captain. She had studied every piece of alien data they had recovered from the original message. The cultural differences were even greater than they had imagined. "Admiral Thekanos," Dr. Kim said in a calm voice, "we understand your concerns about human involvement. But surely the preservation of your civilization is more important than following galactic protocols." The alien admiral looked at her with what might have been surprise. "You are remarkably calm for a human, Dr. Kim. Our databases indicate that your species has difficulty controlling aggressive impulses." "We're not here to be aggressive," she replied. "We're here to protect innocent people." Chief Engineer Tony Miller chose that moment to patch into the communication from his position in the Defiance's engine room. His voice came through the speakers as he worked on something that was apparently making loud mechanical noises. "Hey, Captain, are we talking to the aliens yet? Because I've got their ship's power signatures on my sensors, and I've got to tell you, their technology is pretty impressive. Not as robust as ours, but definitely more elegant. I'd love to compare notes with their engineering team." Admiral Thekanos stared at the screen in shock. The idea that a human engineer wanted to casually discuss technology while floating in a warship that could destroy planets was apparently beyond his comprehension. "Your engineer seems very enthusiastic," Thekanos said carefully. "Tony's always excited about new technology," Rodriguez replied. "He's not dangerous unless you try to hurt his engines." The alien admiral's expression suggested he was not sure. If that was meant to be a joke, Doctor, Kim tried a different approach. "Admiral, can you show us the tactical situation? Perhaps we can find a way to help that doesn't involve direct combat." Thekanos hesitated, then activated a holographic display that showed the local star system. Red markers indicated Kythera. Empire forces moving toward the Coalition's main worlds. There were dozens of enemy ships, all larger than the Coalition vessels trying to stop them. The Kithra fleet will arrive at our homeworld in 6 days, Thikinos explained. We have evacuated what civilians we could, but billions remain. Our defensive fleets have been reduced to 30% effectiveness. Rodriguez studied the tactical display with a professional eye. The Kithra ships were moving in tight formations, following predictable patterns. Their technology looked advanced, but their tactics were simple and straightforward. They fight like they've never faced real resistance, he observed. Most species surrender when faced with superior numbers, Thikinos replied. The Kithra Empire has conquered 17 star systems using these same tactics. Well, they haven't met humans yet, Rodriguez said grimly. The comment made Admiral Thikinos visibly nervous. Captain Rodriguez, with respect, human combat methods are considered extremely dangerous by galactic standards. Your species' approach to warfare could cause casualties on both sides that far exceed acceptable losses. Commander Foster looked up from her station. Captain, I'm monitoring Kithra communications. They don't even know we're here yet. They're expecting the same easy victory they've had everywhere else. Dr. Kim had an idea. Admiral Thikinos, what if we observed your laws of warfare? What if human forces operated under coalition military protocols? The alien admiral considered this for a long moment. That would be ... unprecedented, but it might be acceptable to the Galactic Council, assuming human forces could restrain themselves to non-lethal combat methods. Rodriguez and his officers exchanged glances. Non-lethal. Combat against an enemy that was committing genocide seemed like a poor strategy, but it might be their only chance to help. What exactly does that mean? Rodriguez asked. Disable enemy vessels without destroying them. Capture rather than kill enemy personnel. Use minimum necessary force to achieve objectives. And if they don't surrender, then we must accept defeat rather than escalate to lethal force levels. Rodriguez felt like he was having a conversation with someone from another planet, which he supposed he was. The idea that you would let innocent people die rather than use lethal force against their attackers was completely alien to human thinking. Admiral, Dr. Kim said carefully, we appreciate your position. But human military doctrine is based on protecting innocent lives above all other considerations. If your people are in danger, we will do whatever is necessary to save them. Thikinos closed his large dark eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he looked directly at Captain Rodriguez. If you insist on remaining, you will operate under coalition. Command structure. Your ships will follow our tactical orders. And if you violate galactic warfare conventions, we will be forced to classify you as a hostile force. Rodriguez nodded slowly. Understood, Admiral. We'll do this your way. At least until your way stops working. The alien admiral looked like. He wanted to ask what that meant, but decided he probably did not want to know. Very well. Welcome to the Coalition Defense Force, Captain Rodriguez. I hope we both survive what comes next. As the communication ended, Rodriguez turned to his crew. They had wanted to help, and now they had their chance. The question was whether they could save the Zephyrians while fighting with one hand tied behind their backs. The Kithra Empire fleet arrived exactly when Admiral Thikinos had predicted. 57 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and moved toward the Coalition's home world like a dark tide. Their ships were massive and angular, built for intimidation as much as destruction. Captain Rodriguez watched the enemy formation from the bridge of the Defiance. The human ships were positioned at the back of the Coalition fleet, following orders to observe and support rather than lead the attack. It felt wrong to every human instinct, but they had agreed to follow alien rules of war. Kithra fleet is broadcasting surrender demands, Commander Foster reported. They're giving the Coalition 12 hours to evacuate all military forces and submit to Imperial rule. Admiral Thikinos appeared on the communication screen. His graceful features looked strained and worried. "Captain Rodriguez, we will attempt to negotiate with the Kythera commander first. Coalition protocol requires us to seek peaceful resolution before engaging in combat. What if they refuse to negotiate? Then we will engage using minimum necessary force, as discussed." Rodriguez nodded, but privately he thought the aliens were about to learn a hard lesson about dealing with conquerors. The Kythera had destroyed 17 star systems. They were not interested in peaceful negotiations. The coalition fleet moved forward in perfect formation. Their ships were beautiful, all curves and flowing lines that caught the light from the local star. They looked more like art pieces than weapons of war. The humans watched as Admiral Thickenos opened a communication channel with the enemy. The Kythera commander appeared on screen. He was a large creature with gray skin and 4 arms, wearing elaborate armor that marked him as high-ranking military. His face showed no emotion as he listened to Thickenos speak about surrender terms and prisoner treatment. "Your words are meaningless," the Kythera commander said when Thickenos finished. "Surrender or be destroyed. You have 1 hour." The communication ended abruptly. Admiral Thickenos looked shocked that his diplomatic approach had failed so completely. "All coalition ships prepare for defensive engagement," Thickenos broadcast to his fleet. "Remember, disable only. We are not murderers like our enemies." The battle began badly for the coalition. Their weapons were designed to disable rather than destroy, sending out energy pulses that were meant to shut down enemy ship systems. The Kythera responded with massive explosive weapons that tore coalition ships apart. Captain Rachel Turner of the UNS Vengeance watched 3 coalition ships explode in the first 5 minutes of fighting. Her fingers gripped the arms of her command chair as she forced herself to follow orders and stay back. "Captain Rodriguez," she called over the communication system, "request permission to engage. The coalition ships are being slaughtered." "Denied," Rodriguez replied through gritted teeth. "We follow their rules until they release us from that agreement." On the main battlefield, Admiral Thickenos was learning the difference between civilized warfare and real combat. His ships were faster and more maneuverable than the Kythera vessels, but their non-lethal weapons could not penetrate the enemy's heavy armor. Meanwhile, every shot from the Kythera fleet destroyed or crippled coalition vessels. "Human ships," Thickenos called desperately. "Can you assist with evacuation of damaged vessels?" "We're moving to help," Rodriguez replied. The human ships accelerated toward the battle zone, their heavier construction allowing them to survive in areas where coalition ships would be instantly destroyed. Chief Engineer Tony Miller coordinated the rescue operations from his position deep in the Defiance's engine room. Human ships moved through the battle zone like sharks, ignoring weapons fire that would cripple lighter vessels. They pulled survivors from destroyed coalition ships while continuing to follow the no-lethal force orders. "This is insane," Miller muttered as explosions rocked his ship. "We could end this fight in 10 minutes if they'd let us actually shoot back." Dr. Sandra Kim monitored the battle from the coalition command ship where she had been stationed as a liaison. She watched Admiral Thickenos make increasingly desperate tactical decisions as more of his ships were destroyed. "Admiral," she said quietly, "you're going to lose this battle if you don't change tactics." "We cannot escalate to lethal force," Thickenos replied. "It violates every principle of civilized warfare. And if you lose, billions of your people die." The alien admiral looked at her with his large, dark eyes. "Better to die with honor than to become monsters like our enemies." Dr. Kim felt a chill of understanding. The coalition would rather face extinction than fight the way humans fought. Their entire civilization was built on the idea that violence should be controlled and limited. The concept of total war was literally unthinkable. To them, the turning point came when the Kythera commander made a tactical mistake. Seeing that the coalition ships were helpless against his forces, he ordered several of his vessels to break formation and attack the evacuation ships that were rescuing civilian populations from the planet below. Captain Rodriguez watched enemy ships move toward defenseless transports filled with alien families. The Kithera were going to murder refugees for no military reason except to spread terror. Admiral Thekanos, Rodriguez called over the communication system. They're targeting civilians. I see it, the alien admiral replied, his voice breaking. There's nothing we can do. Our remaining ships cannot reach them in time. Rodriguez looked around his bridge. Every human face showed the same expression. They had been patient. They had followed alien rules. They had watched coalition soldiers die because their leaders would not let them fight effectively. But attacking civilians was a line that could not be crossed. All human ships, Rodriguez broadcast on the fleet frequency. The rules just changed. Protocol 7 is now in effect. Commander Foster looked up from her station. Sir, Admiral Thekanos has not authorized lethal force. The Admiral doesn't get to authorize what humans do when innocent people are about to be murdered. Rodriguez replied coldly. All ships, weapons free? Show the Kithera what Deathworlders do to child killers. The human fleet moved as one unit. Where they had been holding back and following orders, now they attacked with the focused fury of predators protecting their young. The Un's Vengeance fired her main railgun at a Kithera ship that was pursuing a civilian transport. The magnetic acceleration system hurled a solid metal projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. The result was spectacular. The Kithera ship simply ceased to exist, vaporized by the kinetic impact. The shock wave from the explosion disabled two other enemy vessels. Captain Turner's voice came over the communication system, calm and professional. Target eliminated, moving to engage next hostile. The Kithera fleet suddenly found themselves facing an entirely different kind of enemy. Human ships moved through their formations like wolves among sheep, where coalition vessels had been trying to disable and capture. Human ships destroyed everything they targeted. The Kithera commander tried to contact the human fleet, probably to demand surrender or threaten retaliation. Captain Rodriguez ignored the communication requests. There was no point in talking to someone who murdered civilians. Within 30 minutes, the Kithera fleet had been reduced from 57 ships to 12. The survivors were trying to retreat, but human ships were faster and had no intention of letting war criminals escape. Admiral Thekanos watched the destruction in shock. Captain Rodriguez, you must stop. This level of violence exceeds all acceptable parameters. Admiral, Rodriguez replied without taking his eyes off the tactical display. They chose to target civilians. Now they face the consequences. This is what happens when you threaten innocent people in front of humans. The last Kithera ship exploded under fire from 3 human vessels. The battle was over. The coalition had been saved, but at a cost that would change everything. In the silence that followed, Admiral Thekanos stared at the debris field that had once been an enemy fleet. He finally understood why humans were classified as the galaxy's most dangerous species. It was not just their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect innocent lives, regardless of rules or conventions. What have we unleashed? He whispered to himself. The aftermath of the battle was more complicated than the fighting itself. Captain Rodriguez stood in the shuttle bay of the coalition command ship, watching human Marines unload Kithera prisoners. The alien captives were huge compared to humans, but they moved carefully and kept their 4 arms visible at all times. Fear radiated from them like heat from a fire. Admiral Thekanos met Rodriguez at the entrance to the prisoner-holding area. The alien commander looked tired and confused. In 1 hour, he had watched everything he believed about warfare proven wrong. Captain, We need to discuss what happens next, Thekanos said. The galactic community will demand explanations for the level of destruction your ships caused. The level of destruction was appropriate for the threat, Rodriguez replied. They were targeting civilian ships. In human culture, that makes them legitimate targets for complete elimination. Dr. Sandra Kim joined them, carrying a tablet full of data she had gathered during the battle. Admiral Thekanos, I've been analyzing the engagement. The Kithera fleet was equipped with weapons designed specifically to destroy populated planets. They weren't just conquering your worlds. They were planning to sterilize them completely. The alien admiral's large eyes widened. That's impossible. Even the most aggressive species don't commit total genocide. The Kithera do, Kim replied grimly. Captain Rodriguez, we need to interrogate the prisoners. I think there's more to this war than we understand. The first prisoner they questioned was a Kithera ship commander named Vexahal. He was typical of his species, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin and intelligent red eyes. When the guards brought him into the interrogation room, he immediately focused on Captain Rodriguez. You are human, Vexahal said in heavily accented English. The Deathworld species. We were told you were quarantined to your home system. Obviously that information was wrong, Rodriguez replied. Why were your ships attacking civilian evacuation transports? The Kithera commander studied Rodriguez for a long moment. You ask why we attack the weak? Because that is what strong species do. The weak exist to serve the strong or to die. Doctor. Kim leaned forward. Your empire has destroyed 17 star systems. That's billions of intelligent beings. Why? Because they were weak and we are strong. This is the natural order. Admiral Thekanos, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. How can you justify such slaughter? Vexahal turned his red eyes toward the Coalition Admiral. How can you justify such weakness? Your species builds beautiful ships, but fills them with weapons that cannot kill. You have the technology to destroy worlds, but choose to disable instead. You are prey, pretending to be predators. And what does that make humans? Dr. Kim asked that the Kithera commander was quiet for a moment. We monitored your battle performance. Your ships are smaller than ours, but carry more destructive power. Your weapons are designed for maximum lethality. Your tactics prioritize elimination of threats over preservation of enemy lives. That's correct, Rodriguez said. Then you are truly apex predators. The galactic databases were accurate. Vexahal paused. But you fight to protect the weak rather than consume them. This is unusual. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Tony Miller was working with Coalition technicians to examine captured Kithera technology. What they found was disturbing. The enemy ships carried biological weapons designed to poison entire planets. Their computers contained detailed plans for the systematic extermination of dozens of species. Captain, Miller reported over the communication system, these weren't just conquest fleets. They were extermination fleets. The Kithera weren't planning to rule the Coalition worlds. They were planning to make them uninhabitable for any other species. Dr. Kim processed this information while continuing her interrogation. Commander Vexahal, why does your empire want to destroy other species instead of simply conquering them? Because living with inferior species is inefficient. Better to eliminate them and use their worlds for superior beings. But you could use them as workers, as servants. Other aggressive species throughout history have used conquered populations as labor forces. The Kithera commander looked at her with something like surprise. You would enslave defeated enemies? I'm not saying we would. I'm asking why you don't. Because weak species multiply too quickly. They consume resources. They require monitoring. It is simpler to eliminate them and take what they built. Admiral. Thekanos left the interrogation room looking sick. Dr. Kim found him in the corridor, leaning against the wall. "Admiral, are you all right?" "I thought the Kithra were like other aggressive species we've encountered," Thekanos said quietly. "Conquerors, who wanted to rule over others. But they're not conquerors. They're exterminators. That's why human tactics were necessary," Kim explained. "You can negotiate with conquerors. You can surrender to them and hope for mercy. But you cannot negotiate with a species that wants to murder everyone who isn't them." Back in the interrogation room, Captain Rodriguez was learning more about the galactic situation. The Kithra Empire had been expanding for over a century, but they had always faced species similar to the Coalition. Peaceful civilizations that fought defensive wars with limited weapons and strict rules about acceptable casualties. "Your species changes the dynamic," Vaxahul admitted. "Other species surrender when they realize they cannot win without massive casualties. Humans appear to accept massive casualties as the cost of protecting others." "That's correct," Rodriguez said. "How many ships does your empire have?" "Thousands. What you destroyed here was a minor expeditionary force." Rodriguez felt a chill. If this was a minor force, then the main Kithra fleet was far larger than anyone had imagined. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you are apex predators like us, but you serve prey species. This is fascinating. In all our expansion, we have never encountered a species that fights like predators, but protects like prey." Dr. Kim had been recording the conversation. She looked at Captain Rodriguez with concern. "Captain, if the Kithra Empire is as large as he claims, the Coalition cannot survive another attack, even with our help." "Then we make sure there isn't another attack," Rodriguez replied grimly. The interrogation continued for several hours. What they learned painted a picture of a galactic community that was completely unprepared for a species like the Kithra. For thousands of years, galactic civilization had been built on the assumption that all intelligent species would eventually develop peaceful solutions to conflict. The Kithra had evolved differently. "Your empire will send more fleets," Rodriguez stated. "Of course. This system contains valuable resources and strategic positions. The Empire will send a full battle group next time." "How many ships is that?" 500 vessels minimum." Admiral Thikanos, who had returned to listen, made a sound of despair. "The entire Coalition Defense Force has less than 200 ships remaining." "Then you will need more humans," Vaxahul said matter-of-factly. "Or you will be extinct within a year." The Kithera commander was returned to his cell, leaving the three leaders to discuss what they had learned. The situation was worse than anyone had imagined. The Kithera Empire was not just another aggressive species. They were dedicated to the complete elimination of all other intelligent life in the galaxy. "We need to contact Earth immediately," Rodriguez said. "Admiral Washington needs to know what we're really facing here." "Will your people send more ships?" Thekanos asked. Rodriguez thought about the human response to learning that an entire empire was dedicated to committing genocide on a galactic scale. Earth's military had been built to defend against external threats, but they had never imagined a threat like this. "Admiral, when humans learn that someone is trying to murder entire civilizations of innocent people, they don't send more ships," Rodriguez said grimly. "They send the entire fleet." Dr. Kim was already preparing the message that would change the course of galactic history. For the first time, humanity would face an enemy that matched their own capacity for total warfare. The difference was that humans fought to protect life, while the Kithra fought to destroy it. The question was whether that difference would be enough. The message from Captain Rodriguez reached Earth in 4 days. Admiral Lisa Washington read the report 3 times before she fully understood what humanity was facing. The Kithra Empire was not just another aggressive species. They were systematic exterminators who had already destroyed billions of lives across 17 star systems. "Assemble the full fleet," she ordered. "Every operational ship, every trained crew. We're going to war." Within 2 weeks, the largest military force in human history was moving toward Zephyrian space. 147 warships, carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. At the head of the fleet was Admiral Washington herself, aboard the massive battleship Unzis. Retribution. The human reinforcements arrived just as long-range sensors detected the Kithra response force. 530 enemy vessels cropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were larger than the First Fleet, with ships that dwarfed even the biggest human battleships. Captain Rodriguez met Admiral Washington via hologram on the bridge of the Defiance. Behind him, Admiral Thikanos looked smaller and more fragile than ever next to the human officers. "Status report, Captain," Washington ordered. "The Coalition has managed to evacuate most civilian populations from the outer worlds," Rodriguez replied. "But if we lose this battle, there's nowhere left for them to run. The Kithra will hunt down every refugee ship." Admiral Washington studied the tactical display showing the enemy formation. The Kithra had arranged their ships in a massive sphere, designed to surround and destroy anything caught inside it. It was in formation that had worked against every other species they had faced. "Admiral Thekanos," Washington said, "I need you to understand something. Human military doctrine is different from yours. When we fight to win completely. That means the enemy is either destroyed or surrenders unconditionally. There is no middle ground." The alien admiral nodded. Slowly. "After seeing your ships in action, I believe this is our only chance for survival. You have full authorization to use any tactics you deem necessary, even if it means heavy casualties?" "Admiral Washington, my species has learned that there are worse things than death. Extinction is one of them." The battle began 12 hours later. The Kithra fleet moved inward like a closing fist, expecting to trap the human and coalition forces in the center of their formation. Instead, Admiral Washington ordered something they had never encountered before. "All ships, implement protocol." "Omega," she broadcast to the human fleet dot. The human ships split into small groups and scattered in all directions. Instead of staying together to fight a defensive battle, they spread out across the entire star system. Each group had a specific target and a specific mission. Captain Rachel Turner led her squadron directly at the Kithra command ship. The enemy vessel was a massive dreadnought with enough armor to survive multiple nuclear strikes. Human intelligence had identified it as the flagship of Warlord Caxthul, the Kithra commander who had personally overseen the destruction of 6 coalition worlds. "Target the command ship's engine section," Turner ordered her weapons officer. "I want that thing dead in space." The Un's Vengeance and her escort ships drove straight through the enemy formation, ignoring the smaller vessels that tried to intercept them. Their shields sparked and flared under heavy fire, but human ships were built to take punishment. They reached the dreadnought and unleashed everything they had. Meanwhile, Chief Engineer Tony Miller led a squadron of specially modified ships toward the Kithra supply vessels. The enemy had brought mobile shipyards and ammunition carriers to support their massive fleet. Miller's job was to eliminate those support ships and leave the main fleet without resupply. "Remember, we're not just fighting this battle," Miller broadcast to his crews. "We're making sure they can't fight the next one." His ships hit the supply convoy like a hurricane. Human plasma cannons tore through lightly armored support vessels, while railguns turned ammunition ships into spectacular explosions. Within an hour, the Kithra fleet had lost most of its logistical support. Dr. Sandra Kim monitored the battle from the Coalition Command Center, watching human tactics that seemed impossible by galactic standards. Human ships fought in damaged condition that would force other species to retreat. They used weapons and combinations that created cascade failures in enemy systems. Most importantly, they showed no hesitation about taking casualties to achieve their objectives. How do they do it? Admiral Thekanos asked as he watched a damaged human destroyer ram a Kythera cruiser rather than let it escape. They're not fighting for territory or resources, Kim explained. They're fighting for the survival of innocent people. That changes everything about how they approach combat. The turning point came when Captain Rodriguez led a strike force directly into the heart of the enemy formation. His target was Warlord Caxthul himself. Human intelligence had determined that the Kythera command structure was extremely hierarchical. Kill the Warlord, and the entire fleet would lose coordination. The Defiance and 6 escort ships fought their way through layers of enemy vessels. They took massive damage, with 2 escorts destroyed and the others heavily damaged. But they reached their target. Warlord Caxthul, Rodriguez broadcast on all frequencies. This is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Defense Force. You are guilty of genocide against 17 species. Surrender now or be destroyed. The response came in the form of every weapon that Dreadnought could bring to bear. The Defiance's shields failed under the massive barrage, and hull breaches opened across multiple decks. Captain, we're losing life support on decks 4 through 7, Commander Foster reported. Main engines are down to 60%. Then, we'll finish this with what we have left, Rodriguez replied grimly. He opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, this is Captain Rodriguez. Target the command ship. Everything you've got. The human fleet responded as one. Every ship that could fire at the Dreadnought did so. Railgun slugs, plasma bolts, and nuclear missiles converged on the massive vessel from dozens of different angles. The Kythera flagship's shields collapsed, then its armor, then its internal structure. Warlord Caxthul died when his command center was vaporized by a direct hit from Admiral Washington's main guns. With their leader dead, the Kythera fleet began to lose coordination. Ship commanders started making individual decisions instead of following a unified strategy. Some tried to retreat, others continued fighting, and a few attempted to ram human vessels in final desperate attacks. Admiral Washington took advantage of the confusion to broadcast a message to the entire enemy fleet. Kythera vessels, this is Admiral Washington of the Human Defense Force. Your warlord is dead. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting, and you will be destroyed. The response surprised everyone, including the humans. One by one, Kythera ships began powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender signals. The idea of continuing to fight without their supreme commander was apparently inconceivable to them. In the end, over 300 Kythera vessels surrendered. The remainder had been destroyed or had fled the system. The most dangerous threat the galaxy had faced in centuries was broken in a single battle. The aftermath took weeks to organize. Kythera prisoners were processed and interrogated. Their ships were studied and their technology analyzed. Most importantly, human forces began the task of hunting down the remaining Kythera fleets before they could regroup. Admiral Thekanos met with Admiral Washington one final time before the human fleet departed for other systems. What happens now? The alien asked. Now we make sure this never happens again, Washington replied. The human government is establishing the protection protocol. Any species that commits genocide will face the full force of the human military. And what about species like mine? Will humans try to rule over us? Admiral Washington smiled. Admiral, humans have enough trouble governing themselves. We have no interest in ruling anyone else. But we will protect those who cannot protect themselves. Dr. Kim, who had been listening to the conversation, added her own thoughts. The galaxy is going to change, Admiral Thekanos. Not because humans want to conquer it, but because someone finally stood up to the conquerors. As the human fleet prepared to leave, they left behind a small monitoring station and a promise. If any aggressive species threatened innocent civilizations, humanity would respond. The age of easy conquest was over. The distress signal that had brought humans to the stars had accomplished something unprecedented. It had turned the galaxy's most feared species into its most reliable protectors. From now on, any species that wanted to commit genocide would have to go through humanity first, and as the Kithera Empire had learned, going through humanity was not something most species could survive.